Now next is custom admission controller. Now custom admission controller in Kubernetes are the admission controller that you can create, configure to enforce specific policies, validation, or custom logic tailored to your organization unit requirements. Okay. So these are basically extended form for your default admission controller mechanism by adding your own business logic to the admission process. So if you want to move ahead, right? There is we already read about the default policies which can be put using the mutating admission controller, right? Those kind of default policies are already supported. Now, if we want to take a step forward and we want that our certain business logic should also be integrated, or we want our custom logic to be implemented, then we can use the custom admission controller. Now, what are the key points for this custom admission controller? So basically, it's created for extending the Kubernetes functionality. So custom admission controller is basically going to provide you a way in the Kubernetes so that you can enforce policies that are not covered by the built-in admission controller. Suppose you want the policies based on your requirement to your organization need, then you can go ahead and write the custom security compliances, and you can make sure those compliances are getting followed. So think of this like more customized approach to the admission controller based on your requirements, not the predefined requirements. Okay. Next is webhooks. So custom admission controller often works with the webhooks that Kubernetes send admission requests to. You can develop your webhook service that receives the admission requests, process them according to your custom logic, and return the response indicating whether the request should be allowed or denied. So this is how basically this admission controllers are going to work. They are going to make the use of this webhooks inside the Kubernetes, which is going to send this request. Okay, so basically what's going to happen is whenever you are going to make a request, the request is going to trigger this webhooks, okay, inside the Kubernetes. This webhook service, when it gets triggered, it's going to receive the admission request. Then it's going to process that request. Basically, this webhook is going to process that request according to the custom logic that you have written, and then on the basis of that logic, it's going to return the admission response indicating whether the request should be allowed or not, right? So this is more like the webhooks that you can even relate it with the ones that we have in Git, right? So basically we call those webhooks. If certain conditions are fulfilled, then only it allows us to push. Similar is the case here as well. Whenever we are going to create the resources, we can call these webhooks, who is going to validate our logic and then make sure whether it should be created or not, right? So this is another way for implementation of the admission controller. And last is the configuration and deployment. So setting up the custom admission controller involves configuring Kubernetes API server to send admission requests to the custom webhook service. The webhook service processes these requests and returns the response to indicate whether the admission should be allowed or denied. So basically everything is being controlled by the API server. So when it receives the request, basically this request is sent to the admission controller. Admission controller is in turn going to generate a request whether it should be admitted or not. On basis of that, admission controller is going to accept or deny it. If it denies it, then the resource will not be created. Okay. So custom admission controllers provide us with a flexible way to enforce our organization policies and standards in the Kubernetes cluster. So this is going to help us in the governance of the overall cluster. Now, if we talk about this custom admission controllers, right? So one way is like we are going to write our own custom policies so that it matches to our business logic and we are able to extend our functionality. Based on certain conditions, we are able to take the decisions and then we are going to create the resources or we are going to deny them, right? This is one way of applying the custom admission controllers. Now, you will find that based on these custom admission controllers, there are a number of tools which have been written inside to help you with this perspective. One of them is Kubernetes OPA, and that is Open Policy Agent. OPA stands for Open Policy Agent, and then there is Gatekeeper. Now, all three of them are basically an example of the custom admission controllers, and you can actually write these policies, and then this policy control engines are going to make sure that those policies are enforced. On basis of those, it's going to allow the admission or deny it, right? That's how the custom admission controller works. Now in our case, we are going to take a look in the Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is a very you can say it has reached to a maturity level. It supports the admission controller. It's very flexible. It supports you to write the YAML files on based on that. It supports large number of policies which you can enforce inside your Kubernetes cluster, and then you can actually prevent and take the decisions on it. We are going to be covering this in our later videos. We are also going to implement it practically and see how the Kubernetes works. All this actually constitutes under the advanced Kubernetes concepts. This is not your preliminary, it's more on the security side of the things, and it comes, these actions are going to determine the results of your overall resources which are getting created, so it becomes very critical as well in nature. Okay, so that is your custom admission controller.